Every year, our town holds a Bonfire Night celebration on the same open field behind the community centre. It's noisy and crowded and smells of smoke and sweet donuts, the sort of thing that feels too ordinary to ever be dangerous. I went with two of my friends last year, Hannah and James. We brought cheap cider and huddled close to the fire because it was freezing. Sparks drifted up into the sky like fireflies, and people were laughing, kids waving sparklers. That's when I saw him. He was standing away from everyone, near the tree line where the light didn't quite reach. No family, no drink, just a heavy coat and his face half hidden by the hood. He wasn't watching the fireworks like everyone else, he was watching the crowd. At first I tried to convince myself he was security, but the longer I looked, the more wrong it felt. He didn't move at all, just tilted his head slightly, as if counting people, or maybe singling someone out. Each time a new firework went off, the sky flashed bright enough to catch him in the light for a split second, and each time his head was angled the same way, toward us. I told Hannah, but she just laughed it off, said I was being paranoid. So I stopped looking, for a while. When the display ended and people started drifting home, we joined the stream of cars and chatter heading for the car park. It was almost comforting, hearing everyone talking at once, like the noise itself meant safety. Then, James went quiet mid-sentence. He was staring back toward the field. The man was walking along the fence, keeping just enough distance to stay in shadow. His coat brushed the wire as he moved, slow, steady, deliberate. We didn't say a word, we just walked faster. At the car, Hannah realized she'd left her phone by the log benches near the fire. She begged me to go back with her. She couldn't face the dark field alone. The crowd had vanished by then. The bonfire was collapsing in on itself, throwing off bursts of orange that made the smoke look alive. You could still hear distant fireworks from other towns, echoing through the fog. We found her phone half buried in the grass. I handed it to her and was about to say, "Let's go," when I heard a sound behind us. A soft crunch, boots on wet earth. We turned. There was nothing. Just the trees shifting slightly in the breeze. Then another step. "Closer," I whispered. "Walk." We started toward the exit. Every few seconds we heard the same rhythm behind us, slow, measured steps. It was like whoever it was could see exactly how fast we were moving and matched it. When we reached the rope barrier, Hannah tripped. I caught her under the arm, but her foot twisted hard. She gasped, trying not to scream. I could feel her trembling. "Can you walk?" I whispered. She nodded, but when she put weight on it, she crumpled again. The sound she made wasn't loud, but it cut through the silence. The footsteps stopped, then started again, faster this time. I pulled her up, half carrying her, stumbling toward the fence at the edge of the field. That's when I saw him, standing by the gate, just standing. The firelight flickered across his face for a second. It was expressionless, like he was waiting for something inevitable. He raised one arm slightly. I thought he was pointing at us until I saw what he held. A long metal rod, blackened at the end, like the ones they used to set off the fireworks. He turned it in his hand slowly, and I caught the faint gleam of burnt residue on it. I shouted, my voice breaking, but the sound barely carried over the wind. Hannah clung to me, breathing fast and shallow, whispering, "Please, please." We turned back toward the field, moving as fast as her injured leg would allow. The fire was lower now, just a red glow under a crust of ash. Every few steps I looked back, and every time he was a little closer, not running, just walking, calm and certain. When we reached the road, a police van was blocking traffic for the event cleanup. We waved, shouting incoherently. The officers got out, thinking maybe we'd been drinking too much, until they saw the man emerge from the dark behind us. They ran toward him, shouting commands. He stopped instantly, hands raised like he'd been caught stealing something minor. When they searched him, they found 3 long fireworks taped together, wires exposed, the tips wrapped in foil and soaked with some kind of fuel. He said he'd come to make his own show. They led him away without resistance. I thought that would be the end of it, but for weeks afterward, every time I smelled smoke or heard the pop of a firework, I felt that same tightening in my chest. And when Bonfire Night came around again this year, I stayed home. The explosions outside didn't sound like celebration anymore. They sounded like footsteps on wet grass, getting closer. When I was 17, my friends and I used to hang around the industrial estate at the edge of town. Bonfire Night was the only time we actually ventured toward the housing estate nearby, the one everyone called the new builds. Most of the homes were still empty back then, the windows covered with plastic sheets and the gardens just piles of gravel. We'd go there to watch fireworks from the hill because it gave you a clear view over the whole town. That year, it was freezing, breath showing in the air, the sky glowing with explosions of colour. There were 4 of us, me, Sam, Lewis, and Ryan. We'd snuck a few cans of beer and were joking about finding one of the empty houses to sit in for warmth. We found one easily, a detached 2-story, doors still unpainted, no number on the gate. The inside smelled of plaster dust and damp wood. It was pitch black, but our phone flashlights lit the bare rooms enough to move around. Ryan found some leftover pallets out back and started stacking them in the garden like a mini bonfire. He said it would be funny to have our own fireworks show. We didn't have fireworks, just lighter fluid and a box of matches. The fire caught quickly, orange light bouncing off the unfinished walls. From inside the empty house, we could see it flickering through the window, kind of eerie, like the place had come alive. That's when we heard footsteps. At first, I thought it was one of the lads messing around outside, but when we went to check, no one was there. The back gate, which had been open, was now shut. Lewis swore he'd heard someone breathing in the kitchen. We laughed it off, saying it was just the wind coming through the empty pipes, but the mood shifted. That light-hearted teenage invincibility started fading fast. We decided to leave, but when Ryan went to grab his jacket from the hallway, we heard him stop and whisper, "Guys?" His voice sounded strange, tight, like he was trying not to panic. We ran to the door, and that's when we saw it. Someone was standing halfway up the stairs. Just a dark outline, motionless. No flashlight, no sound, just the faint shape of a man in work clothes staring down at us. We froze. Ryan whispered, "Hello?" but got no answer. Then the figure started walking, slowly, deliberately, not rushing, not stumbling like he wanted us to hear every step. We bolted for the door. Sam yanked it open and we spilled into the front garden. I looked back once. The man was at the doorway now, just watching us. We didn't stop running until we hit the end of the road. When we finally looked back, the fire in the garden was still burning, reflecting in the empty windows. The man was gone. We told ourselves it was a squatter, maybe a security guard. We didn't report it, we just went home. The next morning, Ryan texted me saying he wanted to go back in daylight to see if we'd imagined it. I told him he was insane, but he said he just wanted to grab the jacket he'd dropped. He went alone. I didn't hear from him for hours. Then the police showed up at my house, asking questions. They found him in that same house, collapsed by the stairs. No visible injuries, but his throat was burned, as if he'd inhaled something hot. The fire outside was out by then, but the smell of smoke was still thick inside the house. The police said someone had been living there, a man, judging by the sleeping bag and tools, but whoever he was gone. They never found him. Every year since, the new houses on Ember Lane have held a community fireworks display. The one next to that house is always fenced off. Nobody buys it. The estate agent's sign is still up, half burned at the edges. Sometimes, on Bonfire Night, if you walk past, you can see flashes of light through the upstairs window, like sparks reflecting off the glass. No one goes near enough to check. I'll never forget that night. It was Bonfire Night in my town. and the entire community had gathered at the usual field behind the old school. The bonfire was enormous, stacked higher than ever, and the smell of charred wood and smoke already hung thick in the air. Kids ran past with sparklers, parents laughed, couples held hands, everyone buzzing with excitement. I was with a group of friends near the edge of the crowd, close enough to feel the heat but far enough to dodge sparks. Everything seemed fine until the base of the bonfire started to shift. It was subtle at first, a quiet snap like a distant branch breaking. Over the cheers and firework explosions, no one noticed. Then the next snap came, louder, and suddenly, the bottom tier of the bonfire gave way. Wood cracked and splintered. Sparks shot into the crowd. People screamed. Some stumbled, some fell. I grabbed my friend Hannah, but she tripped on a loose log, twisting her ankle badly. She screamed, but the crowd around us didn't stop. Everyone was panicking, shoving, pushing, trying to escape. The fire flared higher as embers spread across the grass. Fireworks still went off unpredictably, some shooting into the crowd. People were running blindly, some stumbling over each other, some screaming for children they'd lost sight of. I tried to drag Hannah toward the road, but debris fell around us. A burning plank hit the ground a few feet away with a loud crack, sending sparks across her coat. She yelped. I could hear others screaming nearby, a man shouting for his child, a woman crying in despair. We made it a short distance, but the panic was spreading faster than anyone could move. People were trapped by fallen timber, some struggling to lift it, others being knocked down by the throngs of terrified families. The fire roared now, fed by the collapsing wood, and smoke choked the field. I'll never forget the moment I glanced back. Amid the chaos, I saw people, too many to count, still inside the danger zone. The firelight flickered across bodies pressed against each other, some lying still. I didn't see faces clearly, but I knew not everyone would make it out. Hannah screamed again as we stumbled over a small embankment. Her ankle had completely given out. I had to drag her with every ounce of strength I had, barely keeping her from collapsing entirely. Behind us, I could hear wood cracking and screams rising, layered over the booming fireworks. We finally burst out of the edge of the field, choking, terrified, hearts pounding. Emergency services had just arrived, sirens piercing the night. But as we looked back, we could see the devastation. The bonfire reduced to an inferno, smoke curling into the sky, and the chaos of people trapped, struggling, some motionless. Later, I heard the first casualty reports. Several people never made it out. Others suffered serious injuries. The community spent weeks recovering from that night, broken bones, burns, and the lingering memory of panic. Even now, years later, I can't hear fireworks without feeling my chest tighten. The smell of smoke brings it back instantly. The screams, the pushing, the feeling that no one could control it once the fire tipped. I'll never forget Bonfire Night, and I'll never forget how quickly a celebration can turn into a nightmare. 2 years ago, I volunteered at my town's Bonfire Night celebration. It was a small event, local families, a few food stalls, the usual giant fire in the middle of the field. The job sounded easy enough, crowd control. Basically, keep people from getting too close to the fireworks setup. The fireworks were all arranged in neat rows behind a rope barrier, big wooden crates filled with rockets and mortar tubes, the kind that shoot huge bursts into the air. Behind them was nothing but open farmland, a flat, endless stretch of darkness. The event started quietly, parents with kids, couples wrapped in coats, laughter mixing with the crackle of the bonfire. The smell of smoke and fried onions hung in the air. It was one of those nights where everything feels safe, where danger doesn't even seem possible. But sometimes, that's when it finds you. About half an hour in, I noticed someone standing just outside the light of the main field. Everyone else was facing the fire or the food stalls, but this man stood still, alone, about 50 feet beyond the barrier. At first I thought he was one of the tech guys. He wore a dark coat and a hood pulled tight around his face, but there was no staff badge, no radio, no reflective strip. He wasn't doing anything, not even looking at the fire. He was watching the crowd, Something about the stillness made my skin crawl. He didn't shift, didn't talk, didn't even move his head, just watched. I approached him, calling out, "Hey, sorry, this area is off limits." He didn't answer. When I got a little closer, I realized he was standing perfectly straight, hands in his pockets, eyes fixed on a group of children near the fence, kids with glow sticks and sparklers. His breathing was slow, visible in the cold air. "Sir?" I said again. That's when he finally turned toward me. His face was pale, not sickly, just blank. The kind of expressionless stare that makes you feel like you've done something wrong without knowing what. He didn't say a word. He just nodded once, turned around, and walked into the darkness behind the fireworks. No flashlight, no phone light, just swallowed by the black. I told the event coordinator, but he brushed it off. Probably a farmer. Locals cut through here all the time. I didn't like it, but I let it go. About 40 minutes later, the display began. I was standing off to the left of the main setup, the perfect view of the show. The first few fireworks went off beautifully. Gold cascades lighting up the smoke, the crowd cheering. The air vibrated with each burst. Then one of the rockets launched sideways. It shot straight into the crowd barrier before exploding in a blinding flash. People screamed. The steward started shouting, trying to calm everyone down. The supervisor waved it off, saying it was a misfire. A few seconds later, another one went wrong. Then another. This time, one of the crates near the back caught fire. The flames spread fast, eating through the wood, sparking off the other fireworks still waiting to go off. I ran toward the line, waving people back, but through the thickening smoke, I saw movement. A figure on the far side of the burning crates. He was holding something long and metallic, sparks flickering from the end. He was lighting the fireworks by hand. He wasn't panicking or running. He was calm, methodical, moving from one crate to another. I shouted for security, but my voice got lost under the sound of explosions. The man turned slightly, just enough for me to see his face lit by the fire. It was him, the same man from earlier. He smiled. A slow, small, deliberate smile. I jumped the rope and ran toward him. The heat hit me instantly, dry, choking, full of chemical smoke. The air was filled with sparks and ash. I could barely see, but I kept shouting, "Hey, stop!" Then another explosion went off, a mortar tube bursting sideways. I dropped flat as a fountain of sparks sprayed over me. My jacket burned at the sleeve. When the smoke cleared for a second, he was gone. Security pulled me back. The police and fire brigade arrived minutes later, shutting the whole thing down. Miraculously, no one was seriously hurt. But 3 fireworks had been sabotaged, their safety fuses removed. One was packed with nails. Someone had planned it. Someone who knew exactly how to cause chaos. The police asked me what I saw, and I told them about the man, the coat, the hood, the way he moved. They searched the surrounding farmland but found nothing. No footprints, no dropped equipment, just blackened grass and half-melted casing. After everything was cleared, I stayed behind to help with cleanup. The field was empty now, just smouldering crates and drifting smoke. That's when I noticed something. A small sparkler lying in the dirt, still faintly glowing at one end. It wasn't one of ours. We hadn't given any out that night. It looked freshly lit, though there was no one around. I stood there, watching the last ember die out, and realized something that made my stomach twist. He didn't light that sparkler before he left. He lit it after. He'd been there the whole time, in the dark, just beyond where the floodlights reached, watching as we packed up, waiting for the next year. Now, every bonfire night, when the fireworks start, I catch myself scanning the edges of the crowd, past the light, into the shadows. Because if you've ever seen someone like that once, that calm, focused kind of evil, they don't just stop, they wait.